Hi, this is Dr. Dave Cron, and welcome back to Dairy Sense. Today we're going to talk about the 3 tools to determine if oxidative stress is an issue on your farm. Before we begin, we're going to talk about what we discussed last video, and that is the causes of oxidative stress. On this shot, you can see that all these things cause oxidative stress. Overcrowding was a major contributor of oxidative stress. All these things cause a decrease in rumen pH, causing the oxidative stress to occur. We got to make sure we're doing a good job of bunk management and all the extrinsic factors that affect the gut, which is heat stress and mycotoxins, environmental stress, and viruses. So as all these things add up, we can overwhelm the system and form oxidative stress, which causes leaky gut, and leaky gut leads to production issues and diseases that we see on our dairy farm on a daily basis. We see decreased persistency, lower peaks. As far as diseases, we see epidermal ulcers and HBS, mid-lactation indigestions, and the big one is immune suppression that occurs because of leaky gut, causing pneumonia, mastitis, RPs, ketosis, and hypocalcemia. So today we're going to talk about the 3 tools to determine oxidative stress is happening in the gut on your farm. The 3 tools are looking at milk fatty acids, inversions, which is a really big one, and looking at the persistency post-peak. So let's first look at milk fatty acids. Milk is composed of 3 main fatty acids: de novo fatty acids, preformed fatty acids, and mixed fatty acids. We're going to concentrate on de novo fatty acids. De novo fatty acids are important because they are primarily composed of the products from acetate and butyrate fermentation in the gut. They are an indication of rumen health and proper rumen function. They compose about 20 to 30% of the total fatty acids in milk, and when we measure these de novo fatty acids, anything less than 0.9% is a red flag that we have some rumen health issues. So there are egg source in Wisconsin has developed, along with Canada, a milk fatty acid analysis, and the Northeast United States have also developed their own milk fatty acid analysis, and that's through the Minor Institute and Cornell University. So I'm going to just look at the egg source. Egg source offers, you can look at fatty acids in milk on your monthly test. When they offer this, they usually show the month before and the month of. Let's concentrate on de novo fatty acids here. In this herd, in July they had a 0.9% de novo, and in August had a 0.89, which was a alert level. They kind of show you on graphs, as we see here. De novo last summer, de novos were really down, and then over the winter they creeped up to good levels, and then now this summer they're on the low end again. What's really neat about it is they can look at the bilactation group of the de novo fatty acids by days in milk, and you can look at first lactation de novo fatty acids, and that's shown right here, and the second lactation and third. I usually look at the de novos for the cows, second and third lactation, and as you can see, the second lactation up to 155 days in milk were an issue in August. They also have de novo fatty acid by pens. They add them up and previous test pens, and so there's really good information to look at how you are doing with de novos in your herd. So de novo fatty acids are an indicator of rumen health and proper rumen function. And when we have low pHs and we get subclinical acidosis and anacidosis in the rumen, we will form oxidative stress, and that will cause poor rumen function. Tips to improve de novo synthesis is to don't overstock. We talked about that in the last video. It has a great impact on rumen pH. And we need to continue to do all the bunk managements that we talked about. We got to watch out our fat feeding, make sure we don't overdo that, and we got to make sure we put up good forages. If I had a large herd, like over 1,000 cows, I think one of the things we should be looking at is looking at pen or string sampling to determine how that pen is doing with de novos. You would do this 1 to 2 times a week, and that would monitor rumen health. I think it's a very sensitive way of monitoring rumen health. It would determine dry matter changes that are going on, feed changes, any more or less overstocking that's occurring in that pen. In order to do this, Qual-Tru sells a peristaltic pump with a collection bag, and in order to take a representative sample of the milk from each pen. Here's a picture of the pumps. I used to sell these. I've used these. They're very reasonably priced, and they're fairly easy to use. Qual-Tru has the pumps and then the bags to do this. So the second tool to determine if we have oxidative stress happening in the gut is called inversions by lactation group. So what is an inversion? Inversion is defined by the percent total fat over percent total protein on each cow. Take, for example, if the butter fat of that cow is 3.1 and the protein is 3.2, that is an inversion. And so we look at 3 days in milk ranges, and first range is 30 to 150 days in milk. These are the time frame where we should see maximum dry matter intake. We should see the most inversions during that lactation, and the goal is of less than 20% of the cows in that group to be inverted. The next day in milk range is 150 to 270 days in milk. This is a time frame where we should see less inversions. We should see less than 10%. But I'm going to tell you that over 90% of herds I analyze, they have way too many inversions in this group, and that causes all the decrease in milk persistency post-peak. And then the third group we look at days in milk is 270 to 360 days in milk, and we should see less than 5% inversions. Let's look at 2 herds. The 2 herds are 1,400 cow herd and milking herd, and the 1,200 cow milking herd. In the month of July of 22, both herds had a percent total fat in the tank of 3.9 and a percent protein of 3.2. And Doc, I shouldn't have any inversions if I have a 3.9 in the middle of July. I'm going to tell you that averages don't tell you the whole story. I'm going to show you that with the examples following. So let's look at, I use a program called Herd Detective. I input the dairy comp information into this program, and I get this nice scatter graphs and information on the side here. I can do all kind of analysis with the herd. It's a great program. So let's look at the 1,400 cow herd. Between 30 and first of all, an inversion is right here, the 1.0 line right here would be where the fat equals the protein, and that would be the 1.0 mark line right here. So all these cows below that line are inverted. So let's look how many cows are inverted. For 30 to 150 days in milk, there was 22% of lactation 1, 29% of lactation 2, and 33% of lactation 3, which is way above the goal of 20%. And so I get excited about it that they're too high, but I really don't want the next group to be high. Let's look at 150 to 270 days of milk. And lactation group 1 is 27% inverted, 35% for 2, and 21% for 3. And the goal for this group is 10% or less, way over the goal. And if we look really far out at 270 to 360 days of milk, our goal is to have less than 5% inversions. As you can see, all groups are way above that. So let's look at the second herd, which is a 1,200 cow herd. Again, they have the same butter, fat, and protein in tank as the previous one. And if you look at the 1.0 mark here, inversions, so everything below that is inverted, and there's very, very few cows that are inverted. So all the days of milk ranges, they have very few inversions. So this herd looks so much, there's so much less inversions compared to the first herd. So I have a client at Sunset Farms in Allenton, Wisconsin, and we've looked at inversions since 2017. They really focus on it, and today they had quite a few inversions in 2017. They're down to only a few percent, and today they have high production, good components, and have good herd health or cow health, and they put much of the credit to looking at inversions. They really make sure they're watching their dry matters. They really make sure their bunk management is doing well. They make sure they got enough fiber in their ration, and they've actually set up trail cameras to make sure the people are pushing the feed and making sure they're moving the feed around at night so the cows have access to the feed. So the third thing we're going to talk about, tool that determine if oxidative stress is happening in the gut and in your herd, is looking at persistency post-peak. So here's a lactation curve. First lactation is in red, second lactation in blue, and third lactation is in green. Here's a 102-pound herd per day milking herd. This is about a 1,400 cow herd. They have excellent starts, good peak milk, but if you look at post peak, they have excellent persistency post peak. They don't intercept the heifers until they're over 360 days in milk. And so one rule of thumb is, if for good persistency, the cows should always outproduce the heifers. And so let's look at another herd. This is a 3,000 cow herd, same time period, and they too have great starts, great peaks, almost identical, actually probably a little higher than the other farm. But if you look at the persistency post-peak, it definitely decreases compared to the other farm and intersects the heifers right at about 240 to 270 days in milk. This herd averages 92 pounds of milk. So this herd is losing 10 pounds of milk by this decreased persistency post-peak. And what causes this decreased persistency post-peak is oxidative stress causing leaky gut, and leaky gut causes the pancreas to produce, the endotoxin causes the pancreas to produce insulin, and insulin causes the cow to use energy to put on its back and not into milk production. And if you look at this herd, late lactation cows are heavy or on the fat side. If you look at an example herd that had a 2% decrease in persistency, and if you look at the area underneath this curve, how much milk is there, it's figured out this is about 2,600 pounds decrease in milk production if we just saw a 2% decrease in persistency. And so you can add up how much milk that is per cow per year by the milk price at the time. So again, let's review. What are some tools to determine if you have oxidative stress happening in the gut on your farm? We can look at milk fatty acids, especially de novo fatty acids. The second one is looking at inversions. I think this is one of the most important ones by lactation group and by looking at different days in milk. And then the third thing is looking at persistency post-peak. So if you want me to look at your inversions at specific days in milk and lactation curves, I'd be willing to do this. Just send a backup copy of your dairy comp, and I'll run it through the herd detective program, and we can look at the inversions in your herd and look at the lactation curves. So send me a backup copy of your dairy comp at dr.dairysense@gmail.com. That is dr.dairysense@gmail.com. Until next time, keep on ruminating.